Happy December 7th, everyone. Good morning. My name's John Martinez with Midwest Revenue. Quick audio check. Who all can hear me? Can you give me a show of hands if you can hear me? Awesome. I apologize if the audio is a little different today. I am doing this call from a hotel room in Denver, Colorado, meeting with a real estate group here. Really fun 3 days, but I didn't want to miss this call. I want to keep moving us forward. We'll give this just a second. I see some more people still coming in, so we'll give this just about 60 seconds before we get going. Quickly, what we'll discuss today are deal killers. So we'll do a quick review of where we're at and move into everything that could possibly kill a deal once you got a good one on the table. Usually these things, we don't even notice them until after we lose a deal. And sometimes when we find out why we lost that deal, we realize we missed something we could have dealt with earlier in the sales process. So that's what we're going to deal with today. That's what we're going to go through. It's probably not a whole lot that you don't already know, but sometimes we just need these reminders, right? Yesterday I was in a group with Sean Terry and Kent Clothier and Dean Graziosi, and Dean was talking about really how to scale your business, how to scale your life. And a lot of the things he talked about were things everyone in the group already knew, right? But it's just that constant reminder and going back to the basics and saying, oh yeah, I forgot how important that piece was. That's what we're going to do today. So we'll go over everything that could possibly get in the way of a deal and kill one as we go forward. So let's go ahead and jump into this, everyone. I'm going to get us moving here. So, you know, quick housekeeping, really not even housekeeping. It's just a note I put in here to remind myself to bring up a few points. We're a few weeks into this thing, right? 4, 5, 6 weeks. And it's time to really assess where we're at, ask ourselves some tough questions, be brutally honest, and see if we're doing what needs to be done. See if we're following the process, following you know, everything we're learning and doing. I'm a big believer in this stuff. So again, I told you I'm a real estate a mastermind really this week, and there's some of the highest volume wholesalers, flippers, rehabbers in the nation that I'm meeting with, people who are renovating and have 90 or 100 properties at any given point in time that they're rehabbing, right? People that do 50 or 60 deals on a monthly basis in the wholesale market. And a lot of them are my students. There's about 40 or 50 groups here that are my students. And so we've had a lot of time to talk over the last 2 or 3 days about the training and the results. And I mean, guys, I hear it. I hear two things. There's been a couple of groups that, hey, we haven't got the results we were hoping for, right? We haven't got the results we were hoping for. And as we dive deeper into the conversation, it's simply, you know what? We're just not using it. I haven't forced myself or my sales team to use these things. I know they work. I've used a few in the past, but we just haven't made that switch and made that commitment and held ourselves accountable to change. And then there's the rest. Those are having the best months, best years in their company's history, or over 5 or 10 years that they've been in operation. And it's the same thing I tell you. You know what? It was really overwhelming at first, but you don't need to know all this stuff. Pick 1, 2, or 3 items, get pretty good at it, master it, and that's all the difference you need to get measurable results. So we even got into the conversation yesterday. All right, I'm glad you guys like it, but what are the measurable results, right? What are your numbers? What deals are you closing? And people are closing more deals at higher margins. So I'm going to put the onus on me to get the information out correctly, but the onus is on you to actually use this stuff. Hold yourselves accountable. The only way you're going to experience any change in results is to change your actions. And to do that, just as we said our first class together, is going to require you to really jump outside of your comfort zone. The lessons you hear today, again, I've had some pretty deep conversations over the last 2 or 3 days. The why, right? The diagnosis. Dean Graziosi yesterday talked about the why and how important that is for ourselves and when dealing with customers, right? And this is a guy who does $200 million a year, right? He's got about 1,000 rentals. He has multiple companies, $200 million a year, done over $1 billion in business over about the last decade and a half, okay? Same message, but it comes down to, are you going to hold yourself accountable? Are you going to use this stuff? Are you going to change? Or just keep doing what you're doing? How do you push through that next level? Here's the news. Whatever got you to the level you're at today, it's not going to get you to the next level. Everything that got me to the level I'm at today, that's not going to push me through this next ceiling, right? So just some words of wisdom there, not from me, but from others, that I wanted to take back from this mastermind that I'm in and sharing with you. So you guys ready to get moving into the content? All right, let's do this, everyone. So I'm going to get my slides moving again, and we're going to jump into deal killers. So I want to zoom out, see where we're at real quick, and then where exactly does this fall in the sales process? Where does this fall into the conversation? Okay, so as we look at our sales process, the preparation, you guys don't really worry about that because that's just knowing your market, right? Where am I going to market? What's our message? You have that down. The diagnosis, what's someone's why? Why would they do business with you, right? That's really what we're looking for right there. Why would someone do business with you? And when we talked about someone's why, we talked about some advanced listening and questioning techniques you can use and overcoming resistance. Again, as Dean spoke yesterday, when he talked about it, you know, he said if you want to, you can make it as simple as, and this is deeper than we go, but 7 layers deep, right? He's had conversations with others, with people like Tony Robbins, right, about what's the why. And when you dig in deep, all you have to ask is why about 7 times. In our situation, 3 or 4, but you get down deep to someone's true why, and it gets emotional really quick. So the why would someone do business with you? But even after we uncover that, after we have all the motivation and urgency in the world, things get in the way, okay? Things get in the way of people from pulling the trigger and doing business with you. And that's what we're covering today. That's what I generically just call deal killers, okay? We got a deal. People want change. People want to do something different. They want a new property. They want to get rid of a property. They want some nagging pain or something put behind them, or they want to take advantage of something cool. But what stops them from doing that is things that have to do with their decision process and their investment. These are the 2 steps. They're interchangeable. You could do one before the other. You could do them both at the same time. But it's important before we get to our presentation and our offer that we do have these conversations, okay? So just to frame this thing up and tell you where we're at today, we've made it through the most important part, why would someone do business with you, and now we want to systematically pick off every reason why they wouldn't and help your prospect overcome all their own concerns and objections before we get to our offer. Does this make sense? Everyone raise their hands if it makes sense. Very good, thank you. And thank you for all the participation today. Starting off real good, lots of participation, absolutely love it. So let's get into deal killers now that we've framed this up appropriately, and I think we all know what we're here to do today. So here we go. Transitioning from diagnosis to investment. So one of the I put this slide in here because one of the common questions I get are, okay, you know, we've got a couple different parts of the sales process, or sometimes it's split up into different conversations. How do I transition, right? So when you start doing this, you're going to have that pain conversation. You're going to get deep, and then you're going to have a little trouble. Okay, how do I transition into finding out what the deal killers are? I get that I'm supposed to, but what's that sound like? Okay, so I'm going to give you a real quick tool. This is going to take about 2 minutes. How you make any conversational transition within one sales call, multiple sales calls, anytime you want to switch topics anytime it's time to transition to another line of questioning, anytime you kind of want to just move on to a different topic, how do you do that without it being awkward and strange and weird? This is exactly how you do it. Here's the tool right now. What we're going to do is what we call SVC. You really don't need to memorize the initials there, but it stands for summarize, validate, and commitment. Here's what it sounds like. We want to summarize first exactly what we know, where the conversation is. We want to validate, make sure we haven't missed anything, and then get a commitment to move on to the next step. So in your world, it can sound like this when transitioning from maybe the diagnosis to another step in the sales process. So, okay, great. Listen, I want to make sure I completely understand. You said X, Y, Z, and because of that, you're feeling like this, you're feeling like that, you're having a little trouble here. Now we want to validate. Is that right? Did I miss anything? Right? Did I read between the lines a little too much or not enough? Right? So summarize, validate, then gain commitment. Okay, listen, next, if it makes sense, I kind of want to talk about, you know, some of the things that have prevented you from taking action at this step or might get in the way and prevent you from taking action at all. Is it okay if we kind of transition and go there? Just as simple as that. Summarize, validate, and commitment. Again, real quick, get through the diagnosis. Hey, great. Listen, I want to make sure I completely understand. You said ABC, and because of that, EFG. Is that right? Did I miss anything? Okay, awesome. Listen, I kind of want to talk about, you know, where you want to go from here, how you're going to make a decision, whether or not you're going to, how you're going to decide whether or not it's a good deal, and what you need to see from me in order to make a decision. Is that fair? All right, and then we go there, okay? So summarize, validate, commitment. Transition any conversation from one leg to the next that easy. So, question for you all. Why is it dangerous to hold off discussing the investment until after the sales process, after you've made presentation? What do you guys think? So this is the interactive part. I'm checking understanding. I want to see where we go from here. Why do you guys think it's dangerous to hold off discussing all the things that would get in the way of a deal from closing until after we've made our offer, made our presentation? I'll give you guys just a second. Got some answers coming in, but I'll give you a second to, yeah, good. So it'll come up anyway, so that's know ahead of time. Saves time later. Perfect. Yeah, time is money, delay is money. Awesome, so great answers there, and every single one of them right on the money. So all leverage is lost after our offer or our presentation. And at that point, it becomes really difficult to uncover and discuss or try to overcome objections, okay? After our clients or our prospects have everything they need from us, we lose our leverage. So we've talked about it a couple of times, but I just want to recap real quick. Our prospects want basically one thing from us, right? They want to know, how much money will you offer for my property, right? They want to know what we'll offer and what the price tag is. No matter what industry you're in, no matter whether you're on the disposition side, the acquisition side, that's what our prospects want to know. And because they want to know that, it allows us to have a conversation. We can ask questions and they respond because they've got that payday at the end. There's information they want. So in the initial conversation, it's an even exchange, a give and take between seller and prospect. You both have questions for each other, and you're both asking questions and receiving answers, right? But after you give them your offer, after you do your presentation, they have what they need. So if at that time you try to uncover objections and concerns, there's not a whole lot keeping them in the game. Getting on the phone with you again, answering emails. They've got what they need. So it's important we do this ahead of time. All right, question for you all. If a prospect doesn't have the money or doesn't have the credit to buy your property, or they owe too much, right? There's no equity in their property. When do you want to find that out? I mean, pretty simple question, I know, but soon as possible, right? We want to know this as soon as possible. If you spend all your time, resources with unqualified prospects, who are you not spending your time with, right? So what happens to all of us, whether you're there today or whether you're there tomorrow, all of you will experience the same thing within the growth of your business. All of the salespeople on this call are going to experience the same thing. There will come a point, if you're not already there, where you have more leads than you can handle. Even if it's not appointments on the front end, even a few appointments on the front end turns into this monstrous follow-up list of 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 people. Now, how many of you are there already? Either more appointments than you can handle, or these follow-up lists that are growing at such an out-of-control rate that you just don't have enough time each week. Okay, so some of you are already there. So here's what happens. If you're so busy just trying to touch base with 40, 50, 100 people, and you don't really have time to prep for appointments, and you're running from appointment to appointment, will that hurt your sales? Of course. Time is the most valuable resource you have. So if there's someone who you can find out very quickly is not in position to do business with you now, it's just impossible, they're not a prospect, do you want to know that now, or do you want to know that after you drive out there, hour round trip, 90-minute round trip, spend 60 to 90 minutes with them, and then follow up for the next 6 weeks? Would you like to know that information in the first 15 minutes of a sales call, or even earlier, or after all that junk, right? So pretty simple. We want to know before. Next question. If your prospect has a deep and a long-standing relationship with your competition, and your competition could be anything, right? It could be a naysayer, it could be a realtor, it could be another investor. But if there's this deep, long-standing relationship with some type of competition, when do you want to know that information? Absolutely. Absolutely. As soon as possible, right? And I know these are easy answers, but I'm walking you through this with a purpose, right? I'm getting our minds all in the right place so we can receive this information and it makes sense. We want to know that stuff right away. Absolutely. So another question. If your prospect isn't willing to commit the time or energy necessary to do business with you, when do you want to know and why? Again, same answer, as soon as possible. These are all deal killers. We want to know them as soon as possible so we can deal with them, okay? So what we talk about today is exactly what does that conversation sound like? What stuff do we need to look for? What questions do we need to ask, and how do we ask them? And I've divided this up into really two parts. There's the investment and there's the decision process. So those are really the two chunks you're looking at when it comes to deal killers. So we're going to start right now by talking about the investment, and then we'll move on to decision process, okay? So let's start with investment. What are the 4 possible resources a prospect might have to give up to gain your help? So to reframe this, investment is, what does a prospect need to give you or give up? What resources do they need to part with to get your help? I want you to think hard about this. What resources in any sales scenario? It doesn't just have to be real estate, right? If you go buy something, if you're going to go buy a new TV, what resources do you have to give up to go buy that TV? Well, you got to get in your car and go there, right? So you got some time and some effort, right? You got money. There's always money, some type of financial transaction, right? What else is there? Right? There's comfort. There's risk. Have you ever had a purchase to make, big or small, but you weren't exactly sure you were making the right decision, so you made no decision at all? You went and you looked at those TVs, and, you know, I don't know enough about this to make a good decision, and it's a big decision. It's a lot of money, so I don't want to make the wrong decision. Too risky. I'll sit on it. I'll do a little bit more research. I'll wait till another day. All right? How many of us have passed on going out to a meal, buying something big or small, doing anything because it just took too much time? Money's the obvious one. But let's talk about relationships. Have you guys ever wanted to purchase something, but a close friend or family member wanted the same thing, and you knew if you had purchased that, the same one that they wanted, it would upset them? Has that ever happened to anybody? Right, so it does. So is that because, so did you not purchase it because you didn't want it anymore, or did it have more to do with that relationship and, hey, it's going to impact this relationship, so it's not important enough, I'll just pass? Awesome. So, yeah, thanks for the comments. Great comments today. You guys are keeping me on my toes and keeping me laughing. So, awesome. But yeah, so when we look at deal killers, I want to start relating this into the real estate world. As we look at our own lives and the way we buy, we realize that sometimes money gets in the way, right? The money's just not right. We concentrate on that one. We'll talk about it. It's very important. But there's other things, too, that can kill deals that I want us to be cognizant of. The time it takes to do business. Too fast, too slow kills deals. Relationships. If doing business with you means someone, it's going to, upset the apple cart. A friend, a family member, someone's upset at the decision they're making, that can stop them from doing business with you. And then, guys, comfort and risk. This is selling a house for cash, something that most people, what you guys do, most people have no idea until they meet you that that's even an option, that that's even a thing. There's question about who are you, where'd you come from, where's your business, where's your office. There's comfort and risk factors too. So now that you guys are thinking about it, I know we focus on money, but let's take money off the table just for a second. It's a huge piece, but let's take it off the table for a second. How many of you guys, honestly, as you're auditing yourselves and you're thinking about all the sales situations you've been in, think you might have lost a deal or two because time, relationships, or comfort and risk got in the way? Okay. So what I'm seeing on my screen is happens all the time, definitely. 100% sure thing. Yeah, so that's why we're bringing up this stuff. So even though the content asking about this stuff is really easy, we often just bypass it and skim over it. And lots of times we lose deals because of these things, and we don't even know it. Because how often do we really go back and talk to our prospects and find out what really happened? If we didn't have that conversation on the front end, we likely don't on the back end. Sometimes we get it figured out, or we do have another conversation and these things come to light, but at that point it's too late. So let's talk about this. What's it take to get your help? Okay, what do your prospects typically need to give up to get your help? So I've got a few questions here, but let's just throw it all on the table. Financially, let's start there. Financially, do they have to give anything up to get your help? I know you're cutting them a check in most part, but what do they have to be willing to give up to get your help, right? A percent of ARV, right? They might be receiving a little less than retail or equity, right? So let's quickly address this piece. It's the elephant in the room. Yeah, you might get a little bit less from me in order to solve this problem, this problem, this problem. So again, as we do these lessons, you'll hear a lot about, I'll bring influences in from elsewhere. And the conversation with Dean Graziosi yesterday was honestly really impactful. And one of the things that he said that I think is really important to talk about right now in this group when it comes to money getting in the way of deals is this. Guys, these people are going to sell their homes, okay? The people you go see, they're going to sell their homes. Now, not everyone out there is as ethical as you guys are. Now, I know who's on this call, and I know the groups you come from, and I know the caliber of people on the call and the high ethical standards used to run your company. You have to be there to get to the level you guys are at today, right? But is your competition the same way? Even beyond the ethics part. Does your competition know how to seamlessly make these deals happen as well as you do? Do they have the resources to make this as easy as possible as you guys do? The answer is no. So if you guys really believe in what you do, and you need to, because you're really good at what you do. It's your obligation to buy your prospects homes and save them from the hassle of having to sell to someone who may not hold themselves to the same ethical and professional standards that you guys do, may not have the same tools and resources available to make this transaction quick and easy as you guys do, may not do the hand-holding and the caretaking that you do. So yes, people have to give up some equity to get your help, but it's your responsibility to explain everything else you do, why your service is so important. Because if not, you're potentially handing them off to someone who is not going to take care of them. So now that that's off the table and that elephant's out of the bag, right? Let's move past that one. So first of all, how do you deal with this up front so it doesn't surprise you in the end, right? We use qualifiers. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. Usually you're using a qualifier on the phone or in the beginning of the appointment. Hey, we usually buy houses in this neighborhood between $100,000 and $200,000. Is that just absolutely crazy? I need to pack up my stuff and leave now, or are we somewhere in the ballpark? We can start to address it up front, right? Oh, no, I wanted 400. Okay. You now can ask a few more questions and decide, is this even something I want to go to, an appointment I want to stay at? How much time, how deep are we going to go? If it's never discussed and you just toss out an offer and they say no, are you putting yourself in danger of following up every week for the next 6 months where you just didn't ask this simple question and didn't realize you're $200,000 off? Is that going to change how you might behave in the future? All right. So, what does it take to gain your help? When a new customer does business with you, are there any pre-existing relationships with competitors, family members, friends, advisors, CPAs, attorneys, brothers, sisters, parents, best friends? Are there any relationships that can be impacted by their decision to sell to you? So let's get some feedback on this one. Let's get it out in the open so we have this in our mind with every conversation we have. So all those, but what in particular? Let me ask a more pointed question, guys. Have you guys ever lost a deal, a specific deal, because of a relationship? What was that relationship? So yeah, neighbors telling them they can get more, right? So that's very specific. Thank you, Amy. So yeah, neighbors. What else? Who else? Who else have you personally seen impact a decision? Okay, the son, friends, a realtor friend. Okay, so these things are going to come out. How do you control it? How do you deal with these deal killers? Well, that's the question. That's what we talk about next. Very simple, right? Are they going to have to sever, diminish these relationships in some way? What's your competition likely to do to try to win or naysay when they hear about you? These are questions we have to ask. So my question for you, and we're going to get a little bit into application with this, is how do you deal with this up front so it doesn't bite you in the butt in the end and kill a deal? Answer to this is really simple, actually. It's going to sound almost too simple, but many people skip it. You just ask the question, right? Number one, there may be some clues. If someone keeps bringing up their mom, their dad, their spouse, their CPA or tax advisor, someone that they often run these decisions by, or that they've been discussing this decision with, ding, 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 right there's a red flag. Hey, maybe I need to ask about this person, right? So, hey, you mentioned Bob, your CPA, a few times. What's he think about all this? What are his big questions, concerns? After we talk, when you go to him and you say, you know, if you decide this is right for you, and you say, hey, Bob, this is what I want to do, what's he going to say? What's his concern going to be? It's just as simple as that. Or this gets a little bit into the decision process, but hey, if you make this decision, is there going to be anyone who'd be upset that you didn't talk to them first? What are they going to say? And then to help our prospects crush these concerns We've got them in a high emotional state. We simply compare it to our diagnosis. Listen, you told me X, Y, and Z. Here's what you're looking to really get out of this. It sounds like a tough conversation you're going to have with your sister, that she's not completely on board. Is it worth having that conversation to solve pain, to get to opportunity? And we start coaching our prospects and shutting down these deal killers before we even make our offer. Instead of make the offer, prospect talks to sister Susie, Susie kills the deal, we call, and never get a response. Is this kind of making sense, guys? Very simple. We're not talking about highly advanced tactics. We're talking about these questions are the questions that 99% of salespeople skip. In the top 1 to 5% actually ask up front. Usually we don't like to ask these types of questions because we're afraid of what we might hear. And we think that if we don't bring it up, that somehow some of these things will just go away. Well, here's the deal, they don't. But when we know about them, we can help walk our prospects through those decisions. All right. So are there any other risks, other sources of discomfort that a new prospect might experience if they decide to do business with you? What are they? Let's get our list going again. What are they? Okay, let's get a few more in. So, yeah, Jessica, you said time. Can you be more specific? What do you mean by time gets in the way? Too fast, not fast enough? What's going on there? So in advanced listening and questioning, we talked a little bit about answering the wrong question, right? Hey, we close quick. What if they don't want to close quick? What if they don't have time to meet you, to pack, to move, to find a new place? Thank you, Jessica, for expanding there. Their time. See, all of that could be a deal killer. All of these are also things that you can very easily fix, right? You can control some of the timing of the closing. You have resources that are very inexpensive for you that you'd probably be happy to give, whether there's a cost associated or not, if you're going to lock up a $10, $20, $30, $40,000 deal, right, revenue-wise. But see, these hidden concerns, you know, will I have the time to pack? I don't know where I'm going. How am I going to move? I don't have the $500 that's going to take me up front to move or put a deposit down. Do you think those things might kill deals? Where you could absolutely help those prospects out if you only knew what was lurking in the back of their head. This one piece alone, uncovering deal killers, could be a game changer for you guys. Because when you start asking these questions about time, risk, right, relationships, what you'll find out is that many things that hold your prospects back are really simple things that are super easy for you to solve. Usually it's just a quick conversation. Sometimes it's just giving them a little information. Sometimes you do a little bit more for them. All things that are super easy for you, but are big deals to your prospects and kill a lot of deals simply because they're not brought up and worked through. So I want to put this back in your world again. I want you to really think about this. Have you guys ever really, try to think hard, have you ever fretted over some type of decision? And it might be a purchasing decision, it might not be, but think about this. Have you ever just gone back and forth and struggled about a decision until a new piece of information was introduced and you go, oh, that's simple. So it might be something like, oh, I don't know if I want to go to this event because so-and-so might be there and that's a little uncomfortable, we don't get along, and you go back and forth and you fresh, should I go? I need to go, but and then someone simply says, oh, that person's out of town. You go, oh, it's much easier for me to take action now. They're not even going to be there. Right? So can you guys think of any decisions where you really struggled over the decision until a new piece of information was introduced and all of a sudden a super hard decision became a super simple decision? Right, we all do. We all do. So yeah, some of you guys said daily or weekly, so that happens all the time. This is happening to your prospects. Imagine the complexity, the confusion, the anxiety from their side, all the questions they may have that we might assume are given, that they know, that they understand, but it's completely different in their world. Okay? So, next question I have for you guys is, how do we deal with this up front so it doesn't surprise you, surprise a prospect, or kill a deal in the end? Simple. We just ask the question. I told you today's lesson is really simple, but can have huge impact on deals you close by forcing yourself to ask the question, okay? So when it's risk, right? Simply ask, you know what? When it comes to these things, there can sometimes be a lot of moving parts. People are, concerned about big things, little things, might just have some more questions. I get the feeling we haven't uncovered everything, that you still have some questions, some concerns, some things that you're not exactly comfortable with. Is it okay if we chat about those things? What are they? What's going through your head? What's the riskiest part of all this for you? What's the biggest question in your head? What's the biggest variable? Guys, that's all you got to do. Ask that question. Are there any relationships? Is there anyone that would get upset if you made this decision without them? Are there any questions you have that you're not 100% confident on, that you're still kind of struggling with, thinking about, trying to figure out how you'll do something or not do something? Hey, these decisions are scary. There's a lot of risk involved, right? Anytime you make a decision, there's risk because you don't know how it's going to end up. As far as your risk threshold goes and what you're worried or scared about, are you 100% confident? Are you a 10 out of 10? Or do you still have a lot of questions and, hey, kind of sounds good, but what if it doesn't work? Where are you at in that spectrum? Simply ask the question. Based on what you find out, you're going to start to realize that many things that are getting in the way of your deals or closing are things that are super simple for you to address in 1 or 2 sentences or 1 or 2 small actions that you just never got to because you never asked the question. So let's take a quick breather. Guys, for where we're at right now, does this all make sense? Asking simple questions, risk, relationship, those types of things. Do you think you could ask some of those questions and get a little deeper and start to uncover some of the deal killers that are killing deals on the back end? It's not so much about what questions you ask. The questions are straightforward and super, super simple. It's just to realize going into every appointment, I want you to separate your brain into 2 pieces and go, really on this sales call, on this phone call, and whatever interaction I'm having, there's 2 things I got to uncover. 1, why would they take action? Why would they change what they're doing? What's their why, and what's the emotional impact? So what's the why? What's the diagnosis? And the second thing I want you to have on in your check boxes is, what's everything that's going to get in the way from this prospect? Is it a relationship? Is it risk? Is it a combination? Are we just so far off on the money? Let's deal with these things up front by simply asking some real basic questions. Hey, anytime you change things, there's a little bit of risk because you don't know what's going to happen. I get that. And selling a house and moving, that's huge. Is it okay if we talk real quick about your biggest concern, whether you sell to me or sell to anyone else? What are your biggest concerns with moving? What are the biggest variables? What are the biggest questions you have? What are you struggling with? Again, regardless of whether you sell to me, you list it, whatever you do, what are you kind of struggling with? Pretend we come up with an offer at the end of today and you're 100% in love with it. What questions are you going to have next? Are you thinking about, do you know where you're going to go? Do you have enough money to get there? Right? So yeah, it's very general, basic stuff. But how many of us are doing this on a consistent basis? I mean, I'll raise a hand of who's asking about investment, time, risk, relationships, 100% of the sales calls. Simple question. Who is doing this on 100% of the calls? Right, so next question is, do you think it's possible, looking back over the last 6 months, do you think it's possible there's some very simple things that were huge in your prospect's mind that you just might have glossed over, not taken the time to address, that might have cost you a deal or two? Right, so what's the value of asking these very simple questions? These simple, basic questions about investment, what resources do your prospects have to invest to get your help? Those 2 or 3 simple questions you interject in the middle of your conversation when the time is right, those conversations could be potentially worth $10, $50, $100,000 a year. So when you put it into that perspective, yeah, it's asking 1, 2, or 3 more questions. Is it worth it? In my world, it is. So we often skip over these questions, right? Because it does take us time. It does put us in a risky situation because we don't know how they're going to answer. And we might not know how to deal with it. That's what keeps us from asking those questions. But we have to ask. All right, let's keep pushing. And it's taken me a little bit longer to flip through these slides. Like I said, I don't have my usual technical setup because in a hotel room, but we'll get through this. So real quick, I touched on this already, so I'm not going to spend more than 30 seconds on it, but when is it that pricing, the amount of your offer, is the only thing that matters? When is it that price is the one and only? I'm not going to argue and say that. Sometimes it's not 100% about price or offer. Sometimes it is, right? And part of this process is learning to identify when it is and when it isn't very quickly so we know what situation we're dealing with and how much impact we can have on it. So I'm going to tell you, sometimes money is the only thing that matters, right? You've been there. We're all in those situations. I'm not going to say it's not. That does happen. Not as often as you think, but it happens. But when is it? So money is the only thing that matters in the absence of any other value. That's your job on a sales call is, hey, we're going to get to the money, and usually it makes sense. I'm not worried about that piece. So for the sake of this conversation, after I do my walkthrough and I'll get the numbers together, so we'll definitely get to money, but it's okay if I ask you some questions outside of money. What are your big concerns, right? If you get the offer you want and money's good, we'll get there. It usually is good. I'm not too worried about that piece, but what I am worried about is this. Everything else that keeps a person from moving forward and selling a house, because there's a lot out there besides money. Can we talk about those things? I had that same conversation with the seller last week, right? I knew I was coming in at about, I think it was 62% of ARV minus repairs. But I started the conversation by simply saying, hey, we're going to get to money. And you know what? Honestly, when it's a good fit, money never stops me from doing business with someone. But there's a lot of other things that will get in the way from us buying your house. So as we walk through and I kind of do my survey and I put your pricing together, I was kind of hoping to talk about some of those. Pretend money is exactly where it needs to be. What else is going to get in the way, right? Who else is going to help you make this decision? What are they thinking? What are they going to say if you say, hey, I decided to sell John today? Who? Who is he? Where'd you meet him? Who's this John guy? How do you know he's legit? You start to uncover all those things. So the only time that money is the only thing that matters is in the absence of any other value that we as a company or salesperson provides. That value could be in the conversation we have, the way we walk our prospects through the decision. It doesn't have to be an actual value add. A lot of times it's the way we conduct ourselves and do business. In 2011, the Corporate Executive Board, they wrote the Challenger Sale. They surveyed 5,000 people on why they made the last large purchases they made in their lives, cars, appliances, things like that. And in that survey, they found out people made those decisions for 3 reasons. Those 3 reasons were price, the brand or the quality of the product, and the sales process itself. And the way that broke up is price actually accounted for somewhere between 7 and 9% of the buyer's decisions to take action on what they base their decision on. This came directly from consumers, 5,000 of them. 53% of people said they made the decision that they made based on the sales process, the conversation, the value there. 53% of consumers made the decision based on the sales process. 9% was price. Okay? The value is in how you walk your prospects through this decision. the rapport you build on the way, helping them really determine where they're at, where they want to be, how they're going to get there, the things that get in their way, are they important enough to overcome? Guys, that's your value, right? And there's all kinds of other cool things you do too, like, I know, moving services, estate sales, all kinds of awesome stuff. But there's a tremendous amount of value in the power you have to simplify this decision, walk your prospects through their options and determine what's best for them. You guys have to understand that. Can I get a raise of hands for those who already 100% know the value of the service they provide, even within the conversation they have with their prospects? Okay? Your speed to close, your processes, all the back-end stuff, but also this conversation you have with your prospects, guys, that is valuable. Thinking back now, I always like to relate this to our personal lives. Guys, this is stuff you know. I'm just putting it into a different context that's sometimes easier for people to understand. So you already know this. I want you to make sure you already know this, though. Have you ever made a buying decision based on feeling really comfortable with the salesperson, the process they took you through, the conversation? Have you ever bought the same thing from one person that you would absolutely not buy from another just due to comfort level, the conversation you had? You felt they cared about your situation. Those types of things, right? We do it all the time. So do your prospects, okay? So what value do you guys provide? You have to know this, okay? What value? What's your competitive advantage? What value do you guys provide? Don't just say we buy houses for cash. Outside of that, what's the value? In the absence of any other value, your offer is going to be the only thing that matters. So you got to understand where you bring value. When you're asking someone to take $30,000, $50,000, $100,000 less in order to do business with you, why does that make sense? What are you bringing to the table? All right, simple, easy, get it done on their terms, honesty. Those are the things I'm seeing on my screen right now. Don't forget it, because the second you do, money's all that matters. I know this sounds simple, but again, I've just completed 3 days with, I spent last night with Brad Chandler. Brad's group, I think, does north of, I want to say 2,000 to 3,000 deals a year, 90 to 100 rehabs working across the tri-state area at any given point in time. Frank Cava, same thing, Cava Capital, out in the DC area, do north of 200 to 300 transactions a year. It's this stuff we're talking about today that makes a difference with their business. This is the stuff they get and understand. That's the game changer. So even though it sounds simplistic, guys, this is where it's at. All right, so let's keep pushing forward. Let's keep going. Clicking through these slides here, we're about done with this section and about to move on. Now we've got some price objections that I'm going to go over another time. I've got this. I'm going to slide through these slides because I've got it worked into another presentation I put together for you guys. I want to move into and spend the rest of our time on decision process. So we got 12 minutes left, so I'm going to do a quick exercise with you guys. This is fun. I like this. And it's simply going to be to illustrate. We're going to do a fun exercise. It's going to illustrate a point, and then we're going to turn that into an action item. Okay? So I'm going to skip, and I'm going to get right to it. I call this exercise Recognizing the Power Base, and I'm going to need some interaction from you guys. Okay? I'm going to walk you through this. So let me paint the picture. You guys are going on, let's call it a family vacation. Let's call it a family reunion. You're putting together a family reunion. So you're putting together an event where most people are going to have to travel, right, for your immediate family and your extended family, okay? So this is happening. Your family's doing this. You might be the one putting it together. Maybe it's someone else, but it's time to start planning the family reunion, okay? So I want you guys to start thinking and type in the questions box. If your family was planning this vacation, this reunion, who would make up the cast of characters in that decision process, right? Who's in charge of the invitations? Where are we all going to meet? What time of year are we going? Who all is going to be the cast of characters making that decision? Let's see what we get in the questions box. And this is a fun exercise, but it's gonna really illustrate something crystal clear at the end, so hang in there with me. So yeah, some of you say it's a long list, but who are the decision makers? That's basically what I'm asking, right? Who's the decision maker? So for your family, right, whether you're just thinking about your immediate family and whether or not you go or what input you're going to give, who's the decision maker here? So some people named individuals, right? There's Aiden, Sierra, myself. Some people identified roles, grandma, grandpa. The parents will decide, right? They'll get lots of input from the kids, though. The one spending the most money is going to be the person deciding. There's going to be some type of steering committee, mom, grandma, the patriarch, aunt, sister. Melinda says mom always has final say, or the most opinionated person. Okay, so we got lots of parents. So essentially what I just asked you is, who's the decision maker here, right? So good answers. No right answers there, no wrong answers, just answers. But I'm going to paint a picture here, okay? Next question is this. For this particular scenario, who's going to be the main decision maker? So a lot of you gave me multiples. If you have to dial it to one, who's going to have final say? In your world, in this picture you're painting, who do you think is the one person that has final say? Who's the ultimate decision maker, right? Because aren't we always asking that of our clients? Who's the decision maker? I want to make sure the decision maker's there. I want to make sure we meet with the decision maker. So who's the decision maker, guys, in your world, right? So, okay, now I'm getting down to one person. It's mom, it's dad, it's grandpa, okay? Sometimes it is a committee of some kind. Awesome. And thanks for hanging in there with me and doing this exercise. Believe me, it's got a good payoff. So let's get to the next question. What do you think the main decision maker's primary concern would be? So, you guys I just got a huge list, and I'm still getting a list of the main decision maker. My next question is, now that you've listed a main decision maker, what's their primary concern going to be with this reunion, this trip? What's it going to, is it the money? Is it the timing? Is it the experience? Is it this? Is it that? So we've identified a decision maker, and how are they going to make their decision? That's basically what I'm asking, right? Who's the decision maker? How are they going to make their decision? So yeah, can everyone make it? The money, the timing, the general consensus or happiness of the group, enjoyment for all, travel and health conditions, getting the family together, cost, convenience, okay? So again, what I've just asked you and what you guys have answered is, who's the decision maker and how are they going to decide? Pretty simple, pretty straightforward too, right? And most of us ask our prospects, who's the decision maker? Me, I'm on the title, and how are you going to decide? Well, whoever gives me the best offer. Let's go a little deeper, and this will all pay off. For this particular scenario, let's talk about this. Who's going to be impacted some way, big or small, by this reunion, by this vacation? So let's talk about impact. Who all would be impacted by this family reunion? The timing, the decision, whose lives, who's big or small. So the entire family, okay? So obviously everyone going on the, everyone involved, right? There's going to be impact. Who else? Okay, everyone left, thanks Darren, everyone left behind. So let me start asking you guys some questions. If you're planning a family reunion, do people going on that reunion, do you have to check with the boss, make sure that do you have obligations to church, to social activities, to sports programs? Do you guys have pets that someone's going to have to maybe watch or take care of? Are you going to have to get a house sitter? Are you going to have to get people to stand in for you for your business or other social obligations? Are there regularly scheduled things you do that you're not going to be able to take part of, and you're going to have to notify some people? So who all is it really impacted? The easy answer is, right, the decision maker. The easy answer is, well, the people going. But who else, right? So yeah, all those people, bosses, coworkers, people who are going to have to watch kids, babysit, pet sit, whatever it is, right? So my next question to you is this. Let me see if I have it written down here. So what would their primary concerns be? Okay, and would they have the power to influence a no or impact the decision? So you're planning this thing. If your boss says, listen, super busy time of the year, I've got no one else, you can go, but don't come back. is that going to impact your ability to make a decision? If you have other things scheduled throughout the year, are those things going to impact your decision? If you need to lean on someone to take your place or help you out with certain things during this vacation, this reunion, is it possible that some of those things will impact whether or not you should go or how you make that decision at all? Now expand that. Now the rest of the people involved, the rest of that extended family, same thing. If the boss says they can't go, are people going to lose their jobs to go, right? So now we're starting to see that where there may be one decision maker, doesn't the sphere of influence, people who could influence a no or a yes, people who can influence this decision, where to go, how to do it, when to do it, is much bigger than the actual participants. It's everyone that could be impacted in some way. So, grandpa might be decision maker, mom might be decision maker. But if mom's dad, if grandpa, or let's say mom's sister, right? If mom's sister has a job where she can only leave for 1 week out of the year, or else she's fired, will that possibly impact that decision? Absolutely. So you start to see this. Guys, the decision maker is important to uncover. Here's what's even more important to uncover. Everyone who can influence a yes or a no. Oftentimes, we just go after who makes the decision. But in reality, aren't there many other people, spouses, friends, family members, who may not have any authority whatsoever to give you a yes, could sure as heck influence a no? How many of you guys has this happened to? Mom said, grandma said, right? We went through that, right? With the risk and with the relationships piece of the investment stuff, all those people that you listed. Absolutely. Okay, can you imagine someone scrutinizing the trip from every technical perspective, timing, logistics, etc.? What would their primary concern be? Would they have the power to influence a no or impact the decision? Are these the same people that you said were the decision makers? Probably not, but can they impact the decision? Heck yes. Let me ask you guys this, from an outsider's perspective. Let's say you came to me and said, John, help me plan this family reunion. For me, the outside person looking at your situation, not knowing much about you or the dynamic of your family or anything, let me ask you this question. Who would I assume is the main decision maker? Who would I assume? Okay? The one with the money. Okay? So from the outside, yeah, I'm going to assume who's the patriarch, who's got the money, who's going to fund this thing. Okay? From an outsider's perspective, who would look like they have the most authority to make the decision? Next question is, from an insider's perspective, from your perspective, who do you believe would actually have the most influence over a decision? Okay? So, quick example. If I walk in somewhere with my wife, by default, especially people who know me in my community as being a business owner, they assume I make the decision, and they target most of their conversation at me and very little at my wife. At the end of the day, I'm going to tell you, I might look like I make the decisions, but my wife probably makes most or has huge influence, more than I do, over most of our major decisions. Question for you guys. Is it possible that you guys are focusing on who can say yes and not enough on who has the power to influence or say no? Here's what I want us to get out of this exercise, okay? Sometimes we do this exercise and it takes a couple hours. I mean, we go deep and we build these big charts and graphs and it gets really hairy. And at the end of the exercise, what we end up with, if we whiteboard it, is we find out that there's one person or a couple who can say yes, but then we end up with a list of 20, 30, 40 other people who can influence a no. Okay? Let's see, Melinda says, What do you do with this info? When you find out that other families can influence a no, especially when those people aren't going to be present, awesome. That's exactly where I want to finish up today. So what do we do? Guys, short, easy, super simple. We simply ask, hey, listen, who would be upset if you made this decision without them? Why? What are they concerned about? What are their biggest holdups, frustrations, worries going to be? And then you simply coach your prospect through that. So, you know, you talk a lot about your dad. I know he's going to be a big part of this decision. It seems like he helps. He may not be on the title, but I lean on someone too. We all do. When you tell him about what you're thinking about doing, let's say we get to a price and you like it and you accept it, what's he going to say? What's that conversation going to sound like? What's he going to be concerned about? And you squash all those concerns right there with your prospect. You help coach them through that conversation. What you want to do is uncover everyone who can possibly say no or influence a no. Most salespeople are going to just ask who has the authority to make a decision and never talk to or about anyone else who can influence a no. So that's fine. So Jill says, what if they say, I don't want to talk to Dad until I have a price? Hey, that's fine. What you do is take price off the table. Hey, that's fine. We're going to get to price. I'm putting my numbers together. Price usually doesn't ever stop us from doing business together. But we're going to get there, and I'll make sure you have a price. So take it off the table. Assuming you got a price you like, assuming you got a price you love, and you go, hey, this makes sense financially, what's Dad going to say? What's Mary going to say? What kind of questions is your CPA going to ask? What are they going to be concerned about? Take it off the table. Don't leave price hanging out there. Don't let price stop you from asking other questions. Simply tell them price is going to be fine. Hey, assuming we get, I'm not sure where we are price-wise yet. We're going to be there in about 30 minutes. I got to do a walkthrough or come out and see your property or whatever. But assuming you love the price is right. Okay, financially, you're solid. You're happy there. What's your sister going to say? Your sister who's a realtor who wants to list the house. What are her concerns going to be? You start going through all the naysayers and what they talk about. Does that make sense, Jill? So how do you apply it in a practical way? That's it, guys. Who else has the authority to make a decision? Simply ask that question, some variation of, hey, if you make this decision today, if we come up with the price and you're in love with the price, who else are you going to want to run this stuff by to make sure you're completely confident? Even if we go through and we do paperwork, who's the first one or two people that you're going to go tell about the decision you made, and what are they going to say about it, right? So yeah, quick, 95% of the time the main objection is the price, no other reason. I'm going to challenge you there. I am absolutely going to challenge you there. I think it's easy to say 95% of the time it's the price, but we just listened to a call recording this week of it's the price, it's the price, it's the price. Get the price to where they want it to. And then the next one, well, you see, the next objection was, okay, the price is fine, but here's the deal. I inherited this house from my dad who passed away, and I don't know what to do with this stuff. Then we work through that. Well, here's the other deal, okay? Price is fine, and you can help me with the packing up and storage, but here's the other deal. In order to keep this house I inherited for the last 6 months, I maxed out every credit card, and my credit stinks, and I don't know where I'm going to go. I don't know if I can pass I don't know what my credit report looks like, and we dealt with that. So, yeah, that came to us, I think out of St. Louis area. So I'll see if I can share. Let me get permission to share that recording. But we always think it's price unless we find out it's not. So it was price, it was price, it was price. He raised his offer $20,000, and you know what? Okay, well, there's still some stuff. It's not really price. So I will challenge you guys there. There's things that kill your deals besides price, but if you're never asking about any of these deal killers, you're going to always assume it's price 100% of the time because that's the only information you have to deal with. Guys, let's wrap up this call. The big takeaway from this is this. Deal killers have to do with what your prospects have to give up to get your help and who can influence a yes or a no.
simply start to ask more questions about these topics. Simple questions. Hey, what's the risk like? What are you worried about? Who else is going to want to be, whether or not you want them to be a part of this decision, who else is going to want to help you decide this? Who else is going to want to have, hey, we all have those people, whether we ask for it or not, they give us their input, right? Who is that for you? Those simple questions, okay? Guys, was today's call helpful? Was there anything from this call you think that will change the conversations you have with your prospects? If you start to do anything, just think of one or two things that possibly could be killing your deal that you're not asking about, and start asking about them. That's all you got to do. What one or two of these deal killers do you think most apply to your situation? And ask that simple question up front. I'm sorry, I don't have real complicated scripts and crazy ways to ask these questions. The point of the matter is this: you're losing deals if you're not asking these questions. So we just got to make sure we ask them. And today's session is about uncovering those deal killers on the front end, because oftentimes they're really simple to deal with. We just never deal with them. All right, guys, have a great day. We'll talk again soon. Thank you so much for your attention, the questions, everything, the participation. Love you all. Have a great day. Bye-bye.